Welcome to Tech Talk Weekly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our weekly show where we give you 2 to 3 cool tech stories in the news, find something fun about the library for you to learn about, and get you on your way in about 15 to 20 minutes. As always, if you have any news stories you want us to talk about next week, Creation Station at Broward.org comes right to me, and we'll try and get them on the show for you. Today, we have Lena from Pompano. How are you doing today, Lena?
Great. How are you?
Life is great. How are things up at Pompano going pretty well?
They're going good. We're getting more people are coming back into the branch, which is nice to see. So we're alive and kicking. We're very excited. I think we tentatively have even a story time scheduled where people can
Yeah.
actually attend. Now it is under registration. At one time, it was first come, first serve, and you could get as many people as were allowed.
Yeah, and
But
nowadays under
now,
the new rules, yeah, definitely call your branch,
yeah,
everybody. Call your branch and see what we're doing and come to see what's going on.
yeah,
We got some pretty hefty stories today.
yeah.
I'm gonna throw up our browser here, get us into the first one, and let's dig into these things.
Sure.
So this is a horrible headline. It doesn't make a good headline, but the story is really important. So, in case you were not aware out there, and as always, all these stories will be in the show notes afterwards for you. You do not have the right, as of last Tuesday, as an example, you did not have the right to repair a lot of your own goods because of various different laws and things like that. One of them that gets renewed every 3 years is a part of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, the DMCA. And this is one of those things that got put into place to stop people from stealing intellectual property, but it evolved out to where you couldn't even fix your tractor. John Deere tractors fall under this as an example, so that if you're a farmer, you can't even fix your own tractor. You got to call John Deere out. Well, every 3 years, the Copyright Office gives you some new things you can do. And this year, they did some really nice things, and it includes some options to be able to open up your physical gear and start fixing them now. So, Lena, do you have anything at home that you'd want to be fixing?
Um, right now, so far, I'm pretty good. When I was reading the article, uh, I have a med tech license. I have a med tech
Hmm.
background. And one of the things that would concern me about this, and they go over it in fairly good detail, is the medical device issue.
Yep.
As a and specifically doing what we called FDA write-ups for consumer complaints, we work very strictly. We had to make sure we were using the proper software. We had to make sure that the instrument was in expected condition, what they refer to as expected condition. We had to make sure we used the same lots of controls and standards. The concern here is and right now they're just talking about patients having the right to have access to their data when they have a device implanted in them that's registering what's going on in their body. It sounds like here they're now being given the right to have access to that data that the device provides, and I
Yeah.
have nothing wrong. I see nothing wrong with that. But um, let's say someone decides to stretch the rule a little further and say, okay, I own this medical device. I'd like it to do this. I think I know how to tweak the software so it can do that. Now you have to ask yourself question the integrity of all the results coming out of that
Yep.
instrumentation,
And
and
right,
it becomes an
and
FDA
something like
issue.
that would not actually be covered because you can't go in and change it to do something that it doesn't already do. A really good example would be like your Xbox. So you get an Xbox 360 at home and the drive is going bad in it. Currently, you cannot fix that. You have to take it to an authorized Microsoft dealer to have it fixed. Now, you could take it to any repair shop, any computer repair shop now could open that up, fix it, put it back together, and hand it back to you. Tuesday, I know that blows some people's minds. Just last Tuesday, just 3 days ago, you could not do that. And now you're going to be able to. So this is one of those things that happens out there. Go and read up on this. This is something that's going to be a really good it's a good thing for everybody to get a chance to see and do these things. And I think that part of this is going to be some of these, it's going to allow everyone to just keep things going a little bit more, recycle, reuse rather than buy. And that's going to be a nicer thing for all of us, I think,
Yeah.
overall. I'm hopeful at least. But yeah, like you said, somebody going in and starting to mess with these things could really cause some problems too.
Yeah.
Our other story, there's a really interesting one that I thought happened, is going to be this is a questionable one to me. I'm not so certain this is a good story or a bad story. So here is the idea. We now have a whole bunch of recordings of whales talking
Okay.
to each other. We know whale song. We know that this stuff goes back and forth. We know that they're communicating on some base level at least. How intelligent that conversation is all up for interpretation. We're now going to start putting a robot down there to try and speak back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I
How are you doing this, Lena?
I think it's exciting, and it lends itself because the way whales speak, they use a language called codus,
Hmm.
which is very similar to Morse code, which can
Yep.
be translated into binary coding of ones and zeros. So it totally perfectly lends itself to be able to communicate with these animals. My thing is, and as I was reading it, I couldn't help, I'm not even that big of a James Bond film fan, but I've got like this idea of the No Time to Die is not the last movie. They've got to make a movie where the military gets involved and learns how to train these whales like they did training carrier pigeons to do reconnaissance. And and think about it. Look the beauty of it. It's not like you're if you have a metal detector or sonar to detect submarines, for example, that anyone's going to get miffed if they detect that a whale is swimming by, right? In the meantime, these whales are designed to look around, see what's going on, and from a military standpoint, report back what their
See, and
findings are.
that's this is my concern. See, I'm on the opposite side of the fence from you on this one. See, and two things. One, are how are we going to abuse it like that? Instead of just having a conversation with another species, the first time we can really, I mean, there's some limited sign language stuff going on with some of the great apes. This would be the first time to really talk with another species that's totally different than us. And then here we go and go abuse it and turn it into a military thing. But there's also the idea of how complicated is this going to be, because it was bad enough when Europeans colonized North America and you had Native Americans, indigenous people had their own languages, had all their stuff. All these names that we use in our traditional language are so much of it originates in an indigenous language. But at least you could both point to the river or to the lake or to this tree and come up with a similar name. How are we going to do that with a whale? How are you going to communicate with a sperm whale? I know it probably could. Someone out there is smarter and can figure it out to make it happen. But I'm not so positive that we are the smarter species at this moment to be able to figure that out.
Um, no, I think there is hope for that. One of the things when you think about it, when you think about what we do now, we text one another.
Hmm.
And when you consider what is removed when you text somebody, like they talk about with language, there's a few things that you have to take into consideration when you're dealing with language. You're dealing with semantics. You're dealing with certain words
Yeah.
and meanings. The second thing you're dealing with is grammar, and then the third is just the vocalization, just the inflections in
Yeah.
how somebody
And so
speaks.
how are we going to
So
figure that
all of
out? I
that's
mean,
removed
yeah.
in a
I mean,
text.
doesn't
So
it seem science fiction like we could actually figure it out? I mean, part of this is, this is not Star Trek, by the way, everybody. This is a real thing, really going to happen. Um, and they're using some AI to try and interpret what all these different whale recordings that they have and how all the interactions. When you get a chance to read the article, they talk a lot about beluga whales because they are very chatty with each other. They're called like the canaries of the ocean because of that. So there's a lot of data there, and it's just using artificial intelligence to try and mine this and try and find something. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting future. I will definitely say that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also one of the things that I think is hopeful, um, it's a little bit of a tangent. Back when you had Diane Fossey and some of the other people learning about apes, and then they
Hmm.
realized they could teach apes sign language.
Yeah.
It brought greater concern about poaching
Yep.
against these animals. So I'm hoping, my hope, and it's a little bit uh, Pollyannish in ways that
It's good to be
eventually
hopeful.
it's I'm hoping that when we realize these animals have intelligence and we can communicate and they can communicate back to us, what would they be able to say to us? What would they want to say to
Yeah.
us about people coming in, whalers coming in and killing their kin?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
And or whatever we're dumping into the oceans and or fishing and or what. Yeah. And maybe they
Everything.
need, yeah. And
And maybe, and
it might
again,
very well be that they're curious about what's happening outside of the water.
and maybe what they could do, again, it could be a National Geographic research, which would be fabulous.
Yeah.
Teaching these animals, once again, how to communicate with us the condition of the ocean in places where we're not able to dive, where we're not able to go, where these animals are capable
Yeah.
of plunging and saying, you know what, this is this is what we're finding. If you want to know what you're doing to us and doing to our home and ultimately doing to yourselves, and similar to what you were talking about in the previous tech talk with water, with the importance of
Yeah.
water, um, who better than beings that live in
Someone
it
who's exactly.
24/7?
Yep. Oh, I agree. It's again, and Lena and I were talking about this just before the show started. All three of our stories today, we could go on for an
Oh, I
hour
know.
on each of
I
these.
know. I'm sorry. I could
Unfortunately,
go
that's not how
forever.
our show is set up for everybody out there. So
Every one of these has, I have a
yeah,
passion.
I know. And this third one is just crazy talk. So there's a company. So if you don't know what a deep fake is, a deep fake is when you go and take a collection of images, a collection of video, preferably. By the way, you could go download all the videos of that we've been doing for over a year now,
Hmm.
of these tech talks, and you could go collect a pretty good sample of my voice or at least one side of my face, and you could go build up a database and then use it to recreate and make a deep fake of me, of Bob out there talking and doing.
Right.
And now there's a company in India, Rephrase.ai, that is creating these on purpose for good. They claim that they've got a very strong ethics panel behind them, that they're not gonna allow these to be used for the bad. One of the examples I used was as an executive, to
Hmm.
tell each and every employee thank you, give them a personalized thank you by taking just the simple recording that the executive has done and then setting up a script so that it can say the individual names, talk about individual achievements that they've done and things like that. Or celebrities saying happy birthday to someone out there and things like that. But again, this is that slippery slope here, Lena. I'm not sure.
Um, with all three of these things that we discussed, I feel like there's a common thread here. And that common thread is in order for us to not create laws that are reactive,
Mm-hmm.
that if we want to be able to encourage good use, the greatest thing we can promote is the concept of do no harm.
Yes.
Because you can make a gazillion laws about how to use these things, and sure, and here it's saying, they're not going to make it available for widespread consumer use. It's definitely going to be controlled. So, it's just like when you get a letter in the mail from Habitat for Humanity, and it says, dear Mr. Anstad.
Yeah.
And it's a letter that's a form letter that all it's doing is changing the name. So in this case, you're having a video that's welcoming you by the same person and they're just using your name. That's
Yep.
lovely. Yes, where does the concern come in? When you get someone who uses their brains for bad instead of good and figures out a way to get a hold of this um, useful tool
Yeah.
and turn it into a weapon.
Yep.
Now,
That's what I'm always, yeah. It's always
do it.
that,
It gets
yeah,
down
do
to
no harm.
ethics.
See, that is a great thing. Yes, do no harm is a great idea. I have that on my wall at work here is be nice. It's right on the door to my cubicle. So just to remind myself, remind everybody, be nice. Treat everybody the way you
Yes.
want to be treated, and we wouldn't have these issues.
Be
Um,
kind.
yeah,
Be kind.
exactly. These
That's it.
things here
That's
are
it.
like the video here playing. You can't hear the sound on this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. The object of the game is at some point in time,
And you can't tell that that's
you have to
AI.
trust. You have to
Yeah,
trust. You have to believe that for the most part, there's good in everybody. I know that's quoting from Anne Frank, may she rest in peace. Uh, in spite of everything that does happen in this world that we hear about on the news,
yeah.
there's good in everybody.
And I think
And
there is. I do think that everybody can. And I just wonder how we're going to protect ourselves from the people who don't um, want it to be that way, or people who are going to take advantage of those things. It's already one of the reasons spam emails work. Why one of the reasons why those all those spam calls work is
right.
because if you can send out, a million spam messages and
Mhm.
only 1/10% pay you $1 when you ask them for $1,
Oh my gosh.
still made thousands of dollars.
Hey,
And it only
and here's,
costs you maybe 25 cents to send out those emails.
yeah, yeah. And here's the thing, they say there's a sucker born every minute. Those type of emails, you think that people should know by now. It's like, do you have Prince Edward in a can kind of
Uh-huh.
thing.
Yeah.
But just like about a little over a year ago, I think this one lady came in, she was upstairs at a reference desk and at a reference area, and she asked me to come over to help her out. She said she needed help creating an account of all things, uh, um, CryptoCoin.
Yeah.
Uh,
Like a Bitcoin
uh,
account.
yeah, the Bitcoin account. She said she got an email from somebody who claimed he's got all this money and he'd like to give it away. And all he needs is for folks to create an account and put a little money in it so that he can go ahead and transfer his money. But they have to, and I said to her, I said, ma'am, I don't mean to be rude, but in good conscience and good ethics, I
Yeah.
cannot help you with that. Do you understand what's going on? And I finally explained it to her, and she's like, oh, but he seems so. I said, of course, they all seem so nice. This is the same.
Yeah.
And that's the scary thing, Bob. It's not, there are people out there to this day that for whatever reason, they miss that warning. They miss that email about,
Yeah.
hey, these these type of things are out there.
Yep.
I just
I
surprised me because it was
I know.
such an old gag. That's
Yeah.
something that people got caught up on back in the late 90s, early 2000s when the
That
internet
was
was
actually when the telegraph.
oh,
That was a thing that they did over the telegraph.
oh my gosh.
So we're talking Victorian age
So
stuff.
is this a
Yeah,
bad
I know. It's
case of
crazy. Yeah, it's
history
the same
repeating
thing.
itself?
Always. Yep. It's the same thing. There were some, oh, you need to go back and read the Victorian Internet. It's a fun book. It is all about the introduction of the telegram
Uh-huh.
and the telegraph, sorry. And telegram is a different service. And how the telegraph worked and how all of a sudden it took on abuse and people were abusing it like within months of the thing being invented. It's just craziness. It's so much fun. Speaking of fun, was this time has just flown right on by, hasn't it?
I
It's just
we have to
insane
do,
how fast.
we have to, with all these articles and oh my gosh, you got me going.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got to have a continuation to be
Yeah.
continued.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. There's, don't you always want to feel
Same
that
bat
way?
time, same bat channel.
Exactly. Exactly. So, Lena, you're up at Pompano. You guys have got the Make and Takes coming on. You've got
Yes.
Artlet coming up in January. Like you said, you've got some of the in-person programming starting. Almost all the
It's
libraries have
exciting.
something after November 1st or so. So contact your local library. What else do you guys
They're
got
prepping
going
us
on?
for classes. They're prepping us for in-house classes
Yeah.
for the new year. And I was going out on, we use Oasis as our source for manuals and things like that. And they've already got 2019, and our software is still 2013. But we discussed that with Michael Bryant, wonderful
Yeah.
guy.
We're getting to get some
And
new stuff coming up soon.
he said, because we're just teaching the basics aren't any different from 2013 and
Oh
2008
yeah,
or 2009.
what we were just talking about on our last story. These are the constants. These are the basics. Everybody needs to learn. Everybody needs to come in and
Yeah,
take these basic classes, and we'll be able to help you do that, all at
I'm
your
very
library and
excited.
all for free.
I'm
Right?
very excited about that.
It's
And
great.
I'm pushing it when people call. I'm pushing the library card because one of the latest things is, at one time, if you had a library card, it made it easier to get a library card at Nova.
Yeah.
Now my understanding is your library card's just as good.
Yeah. Oh,
Our
yeah.
library is just as good now at Nova.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Yeah. And you
you
can go
know,
take all those classes through LinkedIn Learning and everything. It's an
yeah,
amazing thing.
and
Well,
Coursera,
let
everything.
me throw up our final slide here and wrap up for the night, for the afternoon. You could obviously, Lena, we could just keep on going with these. I know
I
it's
know.
a great thing.
I know.
So thank you everybody for tuning in this week. Again, if you want to see your favorite librarian or your favorite library featured, email me, creationstation@broward.org. All these articles will be in the show notes for you. And we'll see you next week. Stay safe.